David Moyes divides opinion. And I don't even think I mean 50-50. I just think he just divides opinion with the vast majority, not rating him, not wanting him, not liking him. And that's subject to change, though, because as football fans, we're quite fickle. Fiercely loyal, but the contradiction, very fickle. So we don't change our team. You stay with your team, you have that life. Fiercely loyal. Players, managers, opinions with other fans, well, that's subject to change, of course. And it's a funny one because I think I certainly class myself in that category with David Moyes. And if anything, this video is more about my musings and my confusion with it and how I seem to be going from one to the other constantly. I'm firmly of the belief that West Ham needs stability. And when I say stability, I mean the stability of a manager for a while. Now, I was just unsure whether Moyes would be that guy. I think I possibly still am. But I did say in 2 or 3 videos before that I think if David Moyes keeps us up, then he deserves to have a go at the job. It would be the second time he's been asked to keep us up, and he'll have done so on 2 occasions. I think that merits him being given a run at the job. But regardless of whether you think it's David Moyes or you'd want somebody else in, I do think the next manager is incredibly important. I think somebody needs to be put in charge for long enough to build something, to put their stamp on something which is completely fluid. The West Ham has no purpose or direction. It's not, there's no real guidance from the top that says this is the way we're going, this is what we're doing, this is the football we're going to play, this is how we're going to recruit. It's scattergun. It was scattergun in our purchasing, we're scattergun in recruitment, we're scattergun in how we set up. We got 3 training grounds, for goodness sake. Nothing sums it up quite like that. So I think somebody with a clarity of vision is really, really important. Now, it's quite clear that we're not all ever going to totally agree with that vision, but it would be something. It would be stability. There's somebody to after. We saw that. Moyes came in, Alan Irvine. A couple of months later, then he brought in 2 more coaches. Then a scout gets recruited, and on it goes. And if this continues over a period of time, then you get a situation where more scouts come in, more of a backroom setup is created. You get the physio you want, and all of a sudden you get a form of infrastructure, at least around the playing side of the club. That's got to be beneficial. The thing is, you sometimes look at Moyes and you think, well, the substitution's not good, the selection, the team selection is not very good. And I've often said that we can't judge him on his time at Everton because we have more recent examples. We've got a more recent example of him with us, with him with Sunderland. Was it possibly Real Sociedad that he went out to do? I may well be wrong. And of course, he's got Manchester United. And whilst I do believe that's true, I sometimes find it hard to believe that football has moved on so much since he was at Everton that all of his qualities that he once had have become irrelevant. Surely he has something still to offer football. Has football moved on that much? I'll often ask myself. And I often come to the conclusion, maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. Yesterday, for instance, I thought, I don't think it has moved on that much. Then today I was listening on the radio to, I think it was possibly Tim Sherwood. He was talking about Jose Mourinho. And he was talking about Jose Mourinho not being tactically up to scratch, and was suggesting that Sheffield United had better tactics than Tottenham Hotspur. And I thought, well, how could that be the case? Because he was the guy. That was the go-to man, Jose Mourinho, in terms of tactically. I was just, has football changed that much that everybody has not only caught up, they've overtaken him? I don't know, and I'm still undecided on that. But I do think there's something that's really quite clear. And that is that David Moyes' signings, his 2 signings, the 2 that he were allowed to make, have already been pivotal. Look, we're not there yet. We're not out of the woods. But if we do stay up, I don't think there would be too many people arguing that we've stayed up because of the recruitment of Jarrod Bowen and Thomas Soucek. Now, yes, there will be some people, particularly as I get accused of being a board naysayer and whatnot, there'll be people that come in and say, well, hold on, the board have done well and they've released the funds to bring in those players. And someone's like, okay, that's fine. If we allow for that, let's just get back onto Moyes signing them. Because what's happened is he's clearly come into a club, probably seen it in a worse state than when he left it. He's come in with only a skeleton backroom team, by the way, and very quickly assessed two of the areas where we needed strengthening. And that was clearly in central midfield. And then, now either he's identified it as being a positional requirement in terms of we need somebody to attack from the right-hand side, or maybe he's just thought I need someone that's going to add a little bit more creativity. Whichever it was and whichever he identified, you'd have to suggest it's been very, very successful. Looking back at the stats from our most recent game, the two players that covered the most ground for us were Bowen Soucek and David Bowen, but you knew I was going to say that, of course. And I do think there's, whilst we're looking at what David Moyes does poorly, I think you've also got to look at what he's done well. And that is a real feather in the cap, being able to go in, assess a team, look at it, see what they need, and get your two transfers bang on and get them right. If then your two transfers are so effective that they start scoring the goals and running the miles and creating the goals that stop you being relegated, then again, that is impressive. We all talk about scouts, we talk about recruitment, and yes, it's important for the scouts to go out into the field to make their dossiers, to send them back, for people to go abroad and highlight players. Yes, that's important, but it's also important that the manager can highlight a player. It's really important that your head coach can spot a talented player and quickly ascertain whether they'll be able to help you out, whether they can fit into within the confines of your system, and whether they're just going to be useful to you. And he's done that. And it's very, very difficult to... In many respects, you can't see the wood for the trees when you look at a lot of our recent signings. The last 2 or 3 years, a lot of smoke and mirrors. This was a Pellegrini signing. This was a Sullivan signing, and you've all heard it all before. Roberto was a Pellegrini signing, Diop was a Sullivan signing, and that sort of thing. I suspect we will never truly know. But what I am definitely certain of is that David Bowen and Bowen Soucek were David Moyes signings. I've no doubt about that whatsoever. And that's a little debate that I would like to just go away now. It doesn't matter what's gone before. It doesn't matter who signed who. It's a blame game. Somebody takes credit for the good signings. The crap signings, well, that was his fault, right? Him. That's why I sacked him. So on and so forth. I think we need to get away from that, and we need to look from now on. You want the manager to have the final say. In many respects, the only say. Yes, you can recommend players. Yes, somebody, can a owner turn around to manager and say, look, I've had an agent recommend this player. He's in the, I don't know, he's in the Argentinian league. Can you have a look at him? The manager turns around and says yes. But the final say has to be with the manager. I think for too long, David Sullivan in particular has taken punts on players. It's not his job. He's too involved. He needs to just get back to the run-in of the club and leave the managing to the manager. He does leave team selection, but leave the recruitment to the manager. Let the manager build something. And I think looking at the conversation of what may well have happened when David Moyes first walked in, we'll never know because we weren't flies on the wall, but I think it would go along. It would have been a really, really interesting conversation to watch because there would have been humble pie on both parts. It would have been David Sullivan would have to, I guess if he's got anything about him at all, would have probably thought, probably would have picked up his phone and thought, awkward call. You've got to make this one again. I'm going to try and bring back the bloke I sacked or let go. How that conversation went, I don't know. David Moyes, again, would have been a bit even humble pie. I would imagine... actually, you've got to assume that David Moyes is you can't judge everyone by your own standards. By my own standards, I have a feeling that if someone had done that to me, I'd have stuck two fingers up and said, no, forget it, mate. Do you know what I mean? You went back on your word the first time. You should have kept me on the first time. You got in somebody else. You've suffered. You're now in a worse position than I left you in. You made your bed, you lie in it. But those are my standards. And David Moyes is clearly a better man than I am. But I'd imagine... when he came in, or when he agreed to come in, he probably would have stipulated, I'm not having it like it happened before. Hence the reason we have the 18-month contract, which, yes, gives him some security, but make no mistake about it. David Sullivan can still sack him and only owe him a year. But he certainly would have said, I'm in charge of things. I am running the recruitment. I'm doing everything. And that's why we got the information leaked, why he got in, that he was surprised that there was no data there. There were no dossiers. Basically, Husilos and Pellegrini had taken all that stuff with them. It was never stipulated that any scouting that they did was then logged and filed in the West Ham United filing cabinet, which I probably shouldn't say filing cabinet because that's probably not too far from the truth, logged on the system in the data analytics centre. That was never stipulated. So all of that work, or any work they might have done, didn't stay with West Ham, they took it with them. So David Moyes was shocked when he came in. You know the story. Where's all my data? Where's the players you've been scouting? Right, okay, there is nobody. Okay, I need somebody now. I need to get people in. There's a transfer window imminent. The team needs X, Y and Z. Well, actually just X and Y, really, because only two things happen. But I think I'm very pleased with that. And I do think as much as David Moyes gets a lot of stick for a lot of things, be it substitutions and team selection, negativity, setting the team out, lack of possession, all of these things, I do wonder if just bit by bit, in terms of the set plays, in terms of the way we're starting to get a little bit more physical, and in terms of the recruitment, he's gradually starting to stamp his identity on West Ham. Now, maybe we don't like this identity. Maybe we don't want to be that. But maybe, just maybe, David Moyes knows a little bit more than we give him credit for. And you look at... Look, I think they're both okay footballers. I think Bowen is quite tricky. He's got some skill. But actually, and look at the technique involved in Thomas Soucek when the ball fell down. It was sort of a volley, a half volley. It was coming out of the air. It was hard to judge. It's pinged off the post, off the crossbar, sorry. It's come out of the air. Good, I was going to say hand-eye coordination, foot-eye coordination to do that, to adjust your body and finish. And you've only got to look at some of Bowen's techniques. I'm not saying they're not Carlton Palmer. I'm not saying they're a couple of donkeys. They're a couple of plodders, you know. I'm not saying that at all right? They are skilled. They do have some skill. But what they bring to the table is a lot of running, some creativity. And look what's happening from the set plays. We've got a corner taker. Look at how Bowen's really shaping these in. Look at how, you know, he was twice there, Soucek, on the back post for the header against Chelsea. Clearly there's something going on. Clearly he's trying to ever so slowly build West Ham in his image to what he thinks we need. You look at the throw-ins as well. And he's got Antonio there taking the throw-ins. The big lads are coming up. Soucek, Ogbonna, they're coming up to head the ball over. Again, it might not be like West Ham signing Ronaldinho, the most skillful player that I've ever seen in my life, or anything like that. It's more Rory Delap than Ronaldinho. It's definitely more brawn than flair, but it's something. And I don't know. I find myself sort of almost grateful for it. I do think there's a system. I think he's got a lot to do. I think he's got to sort out the defence. And he's got to sort out the frailty and the mindset whereby we're being counter-attacked To say counter-attack, I don't even mean that in a tactical point. I mean literally the moment we score, so the other team are countering and coming back at us. The inability to hold on to a lead. There are things that need to be sorted out. But we got Burnley and we got Norwich up next. And as I say, look, we are West Ham United. We are more than capable of losing both of those games. But the more I look at it, the more I think actually we're quite capable of getting some points from those games. And without predicting what points we're going to get, if we do get some points from those games, we'll be looking pretty handsome, actually. We'll be looking pretty safe. We'll be looking pretty good. And at that point, do we then look at Moyes and say, and I mean sort of universally, the vast majority of us, that's our guy. If that happens, if he keeps us up, if his signings have worked, if he's starting to get a bit of identity, even if sometimes the tactics are crude and bully boy and set piece-ish, set, I don't even know what I was trying to say then. But you know what I mean. Even if it's based on set plays and graft and running, I just wonder how many people will turn around and say, do you know what? Let's keep David Moyes for next season.